Alright everyone, we start off today with a little bit of humor, only this is not a joke, it's actually real. I fucking fact-checked this. I went to 3 different legacy news sites just to confirm this is actually going to be a thing. I think that we're going to end up with robot overlords pretty soon. I'll explain why. Kamalaharris has just been named the AI Czar by the White House. The U.S. response to the potential problematic nature of the usage of AI is to get Kamala involved. Kamalaharris. You would have been better off giving it to Blinken or Buttigieg or somebody like that. You took the most uniquely unqualified individual in the entirety of the White House, worse than Biden and his most demented moments, worse than Blinken with his non-answers and constant weasel words, worse than Pete Buttigieg whose only skill is running trains, and you just put them in charge of something that you're proclaiming to the public is a big hot button issue. Now, what this signals to me is that the White House is not really concerned about, AI is going to be used for disinfo campaigns, it's going to launch the nukes, AI is going to get too big and too powerful, and there will be a robot army marching through the streets. Although that's novel, and in theory you could create such a system with an enormous amount of effort and time and expenses, and it would require more than one Fortune 500 company to have the resources to pull it off, that's not what they're worried about. I can read this like a book. The fact that you're taking the person who's done such a stellar job on the border as border czar, in other words, she has not still visited the border technically, she's gone to a couple of posts for a few cherry-picked words with a few very, very hand-picked ICE officers and shit, and then takes a selfie and then wanders off and goes and eats tacos or whatever. The fact that they put her in charge means to me that what they're really concerned about is that AI will do what .coms did, what social media did, and what the rise of early crypto did. People who got in early were not necessarily the empowered, moneyed investor classers, big bankers, corporate heads, and so forth. They're worried about corporations developing products that may end up getting utilized by the little guy in some manner that's inconvenient to the uniparty because that little guy might be a libertarian or something. They don't want to empower the masses. What they don't want is for everyone to have equal access to AI. They ran into this problem with .coms, where individuals that share political beliefs that have nothing to do with the Washington, D.C. mainline orthodoxy all of a sudden found themselves billionaires. This was replicated with social media. Most of the early social media creators of that particular tech boom lean towards civic nationalism or towards classical liberalism in some way. You can look at some of their early statements if you want to find out more. Jack Dorsey sounded like a libertarian 15 years ago. He quickly got bought up by the system at great expense, but it takes them years in order to do that. You have to get a bunch of investors involved, then you have to pressure the investors. They're not always willing to pull that weight, and so it takes years and years to put the genie back in the bottle. So what ended up happening over the last couple of decades is you have hundreds of thousands of people who have been made too wealthy for the system to effectively grind them down and silence them. If they choose to go rogue, they can. They've got the fuck you money to do their thing. They have in turn empowered tens of millions of creators with various degrees of political and social influence in various ways, and many of them are not part of the uniparty system. This is why the crackdown on vlogging sites especially, but social media and the internet in general, the attempt to remove disinfo and prevent harmful actors is really just about trying to screw people who have influence and who are not part of the main line. This is why YouTube astroturfs a bunch of creators that with corporate contracts and shit. TikTok does the same. It's an attempt to counter-influence the public by using people who are effectively nothing more than scripted actors, paid a lot of money in order to make cringe content that is palatable to the low info generation. What they're worried about with AI, therefore, is not the robot army. If they did, they would not put the reluctant to do her job member of the White House on board with it. They're simply looking for a way to exert more authority and power over AI systems. So when they work with corporations that want to develop AI like Google and so forth, what they're trying to do is say, look, do not allow this to become a thing that empowers the public. That's what they're worried about. They're worried about Joe Schmo developing some sort of AI-derived system that allows him to break free and potentially influence others because he's simply in the right place at the right time with the right skills and knows how to make that happen. It's the worst possible situation for the unipartyists, for the neoliberal and neocon stooges that run the country. If something like an AI system, a good one, that was easy to use became, public source or something like that, anyone can use it. You can donate to us if you want to. You can use this program. And then all of a sudden people will, over all of the cherry-picked celebs with corporate contracts, will have to compete with legions of people that are making better music, they're making better films, and they're doing it cheaper, by the way, because they're doing it themselves with a bunch of fucking robots aiding them. They'll be making medical advances. They're beginning to branch out into that with AI as well. That is probably the moment at which the camel's back was broken. That was the final straw for the White House. They said, oh shit, if our pharma partners end up having to gobble up a bunch of freelance created genomic sequences and shit like that, and the surgical apparatuses, basically inventing things with AI, if that happens, then our pharma partners will go bankrupt. They will end up having to compete with group. They will end up having to buy up group after group that has successfully developed something that otherwise probably we're not going to be able to block forever at the FDA level because it'll begin to look a little bit skeevy to the public. All of our singers that we use to influence people socio-politically will be competing with 10 times their number of other people who are making shit much faster, much cheaper, and in some cases better, overloading that market. So it'll crush the music industry. It'll crush film. It'll crush publishing. It'll cause problems. That's what they're worried about. It's not that these things will go away. It's not that Taylor Swift all of a sudden is living under a bridge begging for donations or sucking dick to get by and get a loaf of bread. That's not what they're worried about. That's how they'll present it. What they're really worried about is more competition. They don't want competition in the system. They've already bought off all the big corporations or cajoled the rest into towing the line, reluctantly in some cases. They're trying to put already the genie back in the bottle with crypto, central bank digital currency coming soon for a reason. The hyper-regulation of Bitcoin, etc. With .coms, once that collapsed, the rest consolidated and they got bought off. Social media largely has been bought off. It took the richest man in the goddamn world to liberate one of the mainline platforms partially. And I do mean partially. They're worried about this for politically pragmatic reasons. If you were actually worried about robot armies and stuff, Kamala would not be chosen as AI czar. Because, again, within a year, the robot overlords would be enslaving everyone. Yeah, it would be a dystopia. Because Kamalaharris doesn't know anything about AI. She doesn't show up for work. She doesn't do her job. She's the least qualified member of an already completely dysfunctional administration. People are... The number of jokes already is off the wall. I mean, if you're going to have someone look into artificial intelligence, you would want them to at least have some natural intelligence. Kamala doesn't. She's a complete empty suit. She's the most empty-suited person in modern politics. She's more brain dead than AOC. At least AOC is capable of occasionally formulating a coherent thought in her head. AOC could probably debate Kamalaharris when wasted on margaritas and win. That's how poor she handles her job, how poorly she interacts with others. She laughs as children die. She literally gets giddy when she thinks of, little orphans being hit by a drone strike. She has literally laughed at that and similar things before. You wouldn't put her in charge of any sort of major thing. If your concerns were really as you're presenting them to the public, you would not choose Kamalaharris. I state that as an objective fact. There are shenanigans going on. They're going to try to regulate AI right out of the gate so that what happened with crypto, what happened with .coms, what happened with social media and video sharing doesn't happen again. They just don't want people like you and I to have upward mobility. If we're in the right place at the right time with the right skills and or right connections, we can become massively wealthy and more influential by using new systems. The unipartyists know this. That's why Kamalaharris, the ultimate neolib crook, is put in charge along with a bunch of corporatists overseeing AI and looking into researching the potential benefits and risk and so forth. She doesn't know anything about that. Do you really think Kamalaharris has a goddamn working brain cell? I'm surprised she's even capable of walking. That's about all. Peace out.